Hello. Good evening. How are you all? Happy Saturday. Go Dodgers. Does anybody know the score? Oh, okay. Please be safe afterwards. Get home safe. Celebrate responsibly. But yeah, we are in Dodger City. And this is the Wanda Coleman Theater. My name is Sviatoslav, Programs Manager here at Beyond Baroque. Beyond Baroque is a place dedicated to the possibilities of language. It was founded in 1968 by George Drury Smith. First, the space began as an experimental literary magazine, but evolved into the interdisciplinary community art space we know today. We are an unceded territory. We stand in solidarity with indigenous Tongva peoples who've endured colonialism and displacement. We stand against genocide and are committed to provide a space for indigenous artists and communities as they are the original stewards of this land. This historic landmark now is the original Venice City Hall building, and it functioned as a Venice City Hall for 70 years, but it has been a home for writers and artists of all backgrounds. And since 1978, when Beyond Baroque poets took over and turned it into the space we know today, it is now an art gallery, theater for readings, multidisciplinary performances, and a bookstore. I invite you to check our website and also sign up to our newsletter to stay connected with us and check out the various programming we have. Just to give you an idea, we have workshops happening on Zoom every week. For those looking to better their craft in fiction, you can go to our Monday night fiction workshop facilitated by Raquel Baker. And on Wednesday nights, we have our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop that is currently being led by poet Arthur Kazakian. And a few weeks from now, we are hosting the Southern California Poetry Festival. That is happening November 15, 16, and 17. It is 3 full days of poetry. Friday night features poet and musician Moormother. She will be reading from her new poetry collection alongside the last San Francisco poet laureate Tongo Eisen Martin and our Linda J. Albertano fellow Abby Page. And Saturday and Sunday will be featuring curated readings by organizations, small presses, and literary spaces all over Southern California, including Letras Latinas, Four Way Books, Mizna, Punk Hostage Press, and many more. The schedule is live now on our website, so feel free to see the roster of poets we have in store for you all who will be performing here in the space. But above all, next week we have the Beyond Gala. We are celebrating 56 years of Beyond Baroque. If you are inclined to showing your support for the arts, consider purchasing tickets or becoming a sponsor. Tickets include a complimentary 3-course meal, beautiful art pieces by world-renowned artists for our silent auction. And the best part of it all is that punk rock legends John Doe and Exene Cervenka will be joining us. They are on their farewell tour with the band they founded, X. You can inquire more info about their reading, about that, after the reading. But Exene and Joe also met here at Beyond Baroque, and they were also walking around among these halls and were part of the history of this space. So it is really special that they are coming back, and we're kind of closing a circle here with their legacy. Lastly, before we get to the readings, a big thank you to the Beyond Baroque team for making tonight happen, all our programming, directors Quentin Ring, Jimmy Vega, our bookstore team and interns, Genesis Perez, Tyler Newfield, Nick Foreman. Let's give them a round of applause for everybody. And of course, our tech director, Eric Alberg, in the booth. Thank you. Tonight we are celebrating Motherlands, a poetry collection by Weijia Pan, and he's in great company with the amazing Derek Williams and Sara Ellen Fowler. And we'll be also hearing a few words of introduction to Weijia's work from Mark Irwin. So let's get started with some poetry readings. First on deck, we have Sara Ellen Fowler. Sara is a writer and artist living in Los Angeles. Her writing has appeared in The Offing, Extra Contemporary Art Journal, Interim, and Gigantic Sequence, among others. Her work has been supported by the Frost Place Conference on Poetry, Homeschool Claremont, and the Community of Writers. Sara holds a BFA in Sculpture from Art Center College of Design and an MFA in Poetry from the University of California, Riverside. In 2023, she was awarded a California Arts Council Individual Fellowship, award administered by the LA Performance Practice for Los Angeles County. Her first book, Two Signatures, was selected by John Navyuk Kane for the Agaha Sahid Ali Prize in Poetry in 2023 and will be published by the University of Utah Press in 2024. Let's give a round of applause for Sara Ellen Fowler.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be reading here. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Jimmy and Quentin, and for all of you who will be checking in on the Dodgers later. This is my first book that I'm reading from, and I'm excited to share these poems with you. I'll start with a few pieces from a sequence in the middle of the book, and this sequence is under the banner title, A Loose Extension of an Earlier Meaning. I learn to lick your spit off a pane of mirrored glass and spit again, grateful. My seizing throat and watering mouth, my desire to please, my desire to be seen, prill, gift for you, my teacher. The crush, tax with lust until my breath is a gauze of asking for it. Light-proof, and no fingerprints, no email thread, kind of blessed, yes, dip and bow and dismember. I have no eyes, I have only a mouth. I learn to prepare the ground, sandpapering, elbow, wrist, circles insist the seams of gesso melt, a finish, a conjured scrim. Prepare, prepare. Devotion is a loused thing worked this supple. See how the light rests so dearly its needles leave a welcomed mark on the virgin's wit, green gloss of an eager lyric with all the caesura left in it. Teach me to be a nervy lay, to stay. Stay the gun and tawn amber under glass, the cloud coming down. A morning I understood a color unspoken. What husk? All the good thinking about power, horsehair plaster, magnetic field, whisper under the projection screen when my teacher gasped and came, the cover of self, smoke, night, sand, a cord wrung out with a numb left side, a little rain, at first gray, cold depths, a silver gelatin portrait. Was it a nascent shadow? No, sun through fretwork. My wet book throws light like language, holds host ignition, heals, traction. Oops. Some of the work that I do is like a bit of self-ekphrasis. So this is describing a sculpture that I made in 2006. Bracelet for who I was. Dusk, blushed, desert shirt, thrown over the duct, fastened still by the weight of shown stones sewn into inside cuffs. Just a prayer to notch gravity's bus. I had to apply my hands to something kind and my own, and understood to be dross. Okay. Like, those are numbers and these are numbers. Okay. This is called Mare and All. Mare and all, friend or mare, form and land. Pray the form till rivering end. Praise the trail. Turn back when the cedar casts its light unhemmed. Mare and host and bow and fiend. Karen's lost, we go unseen. I don't give a fuck, you can't sing. Ranchera's nirvana, alive to things. Fault and form peaks the filly's blood, wings the night unborn. You know I could. You come for me and spread my knees. The pit bull must have been a bitch, first to step toward jeopardy. Her latent heat coils a holy capacity, her jaw, her lunge, seize, drag. But I am not made like her. I'm made in your image. My blood only tastes like jeopardy, but it's nothing. The bitch is the saint in the room where we work out the formal feeling, and consent is but a hinge, necked, ardent. Some panting, white musk until my breath is just a hole. Hurt me like this. Let me know your teeth as dearly as I study my mother. This next poem is called Glassell Park, and it took place in Glassell Park, which is on the east side. Glassell Park. There is no casual relationship. Strung, taut, looping, load, looping, adamant, I see a soul at the chevron on Verdugo. Someone already no one reaches toward, already omitted, one who's made their own shroud in front of the topiary at the chevron and the rush hour intersection 50 yards wide. One invisible twilight forgotten. Soul draped in a bedsheet, inked with scriptures of innermost math, spiraling ordinations in ballpoint pen and permanent marker and pencil, under the crosswalk sign, belt in hand, wavers a slow ascension, attempts to string up, to strangle. I am a holy fool and can't stop looking, remembering. I don't understand. Gall-dread fucking wonder. I remember another life. My neck in a horse barn with no shoes on. Soul grapples with cut eye holes, calling in night and the influence of their private divinity, inching tiptoes up to loop the belt to try to get their neck up to it, belt biting, the shroud, the skin. A horse barn, my neck, because my neck homes my voice, remembers everything that happened and how ended for me last time, with no shoes on, others there and watching. I did not ask if it was my turn. I did not ask what would become of my body. I will not tell you what I said to my own self then. But I ask that you use your teeth. Please touch, please let me remember the yellow bones of air inside the taking. Kiss the throat of my fate with shut eyes, breath held down. Kiss the throat of my last fate. Could language be altar enough? In front of the topiary at the chevron on Verdugo. Saint and martyr, soul, in this world, I am so sorry I did not reach toward you, did not stop or call anyone. Okay, the last poem that I'll share with you tonight is Epithalamia. It's the second to last poem of my book. It's called Receiver. light for light, maybe blessed, love has taken us down word for word, opening our ringing bodies, pulsing sun sky ordains you, rascal of wind, and I am clear enough to fuck through. Name for name, we release our signatures like horses failing their bits. Thank you.
Yeah, let's keep it going for Sara and Fowler. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Our next poet is Dare Williams. Dare is a queer HIV positive poet, facilitator, and literary worker rooted in Southern California. He's received support and fellowships for his work from Brooklyn Poets, Brett Loaf, Tin House, and Vermont Studio Center. He has been awarded a California Arts Council performance grant and a Peter Taylor Fellowship from the Kenyon Writers Workshop. His work has been featured in Kenyon Review, Foglifter, Poetry Northwest, and elsewhere. He's an associate poetry editor at Hooligan Magazine and a current student in the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson College. Let's give it up for Dare Williams.
Hey everyone. I can't quite see you, and that's okay. Thank you so much, Yvonne, and everyone at Beyond Baroque for gathering us. It's an honor to read where Wanda Coleman cast many of her spells. And congratulations, Weijia, for your beautiful book. And thank you, Sara, for that beautiful reading. Okay, I'm going to read some poems. This first one is called What If I Told You? What if I told you I heard celebration, I heard lovemaking, violence, pandemonium. I wanted what they had, but my luminous body hijacked by a virus, clamored in my cells. Governed by ruin, my blood ran away from the plot of my life. I drove all night believing I could get it back, this body that won't be cured. Sealed kisses in the distance, desert skies stretched into the new year. Part of me died in the soft pink delusion of clinking glasses, people of industry exiled from beauty and state. Someone said it's getting real, and it did. This life of empty gestures would never be the same. Ars Poetica. My mother alone in her room, asleep for weeks in a cloud of Estee Lauder and QVC jewelry. A wide threat of desire pulls at my equator. I hold it there, breath in, and then collapse. Tonight has a gauzy appeal, and the boys down the street with their mercurial rage shouting at the atmosphere. I feel like a virus no one can kick, like a stone sitting in the pit. I love them somehow, those boys in denim, and only one has a car they all pile into. Wherever they are going, I want that same trip, no message to decipher, just release and then fulfillment. The lowland winds stir the scene as one hawk, then two, caught flying over the river. Down the canyon, I hear their small private laughter from the passenger side, speeding towards ecstasy. I am just a body, silent and difficult, marked by what it wants. This next poem, I've been thinking a lot of like the heat map of like gentrification, hookup apps, and violence and all of that. This is called He Says He Wants to Split Me. All day I've longed to see a tree and there are none. Concrete columns jutting out past the transom of a building's ego. In the fossilization of memory and construction, the city lost its money, obvious where one style ends. Looking at the grid, my complacency, governed by doom, I meet this stranger. He wants to throw my body around a decorated room. I want softness, the bright touch of a leaf slapping edge. In the end, there are no feelings. He just keeps telling me what to do. Despite how well I behave, after this, I won't recognize my life. Nothing, not even worship, will fulfill him. I've been working on a series of centos, which is a poem using lines from another poet's poem, centered around writers living or who have died from HIV and AIDS. This one is after David Wojnarowicz, and it's called I Could Live Forever in This Drift. See the quiet outline easing into the distance. Teeth of red factories, small sparks of airplanes, flooded gutters in that late blue and yellow, splashes of red and green neon sliding across the wet pavements, luminous white ships plowed through the waters of the river, orange interior walls illuminated by the metallic blue of a video monitor, an overly sensitive microphone. Split rail fencing preventing us from crawling. Soon, all this will be picturesque ruins. Motorcycle continuing the downward arc, then the still camera. Portraits of his amazing feet, his head, that one open eye, some passive self into a lifetime of psychic control causes my breathing to resume, and the dream shifts. The room is filled with aids, then slides into a view of darkness. Dismissal is policy in America. I see myself seeing death. I scratch my head at the hysteria. The whole world is still turning, and somewhere it is raining. All I can feel is the need to release. 10 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds of rage, the huge ticking mass of it. Time is now compressed. Maybe it's what we call sadness. Maybe it's darker than that. This is called Ricochet. Now his truck's gone. There's space in the drive. Basketball hoop tattered in still night air. I'm frozen in my young body, picking up pieces of a wreck. I examine the crater in me. Between screams, Mom shoves his plates in my hands, pain rippling into the lush backyard. Beyond the blue-black hills is a river in motion, the river that hears this house. Mom throws them one by one into the air. I've never seen this power, how far they go, then explode. She makes me practice rage, but my limp wrist can't handle the weight. White plates, like the white moon, watch me break. All night, the river cries porcelain. You would think, when the birds scattered, their home destroyed, that they thought I was a man. The next day, there is nothing to eat and nothing left to put it on. But not for me. A single note travels half-broken looking for a place to land on a line like a crow full of rough melody working into the world. My mother sold the piano for $10 to a family of 4. I remember that cloudy morning, clothes strewn on the driveway, junk across the lawn. It was a Sunday. Under the spell of a man who raged, she said it would be better if it weren't in the house. You know, I don't know how to do that anymore. Like poems, objects can't cry when they are lost, but songs can keep you up all night, even in a town far away. Mother, let me play you one. All right. When Mama was a moth, She would light the home, search for small slivers, could split silk with a glare, warm a body against the oven, would collect dirt in the cracks, would shrink and dim herself for lovers only, clean the house in a way, would arrange for men heading over to look wealthy, neat, would heat the place with a quickened breath, would stay waiting for a loud footstep to enter each room, turning the lamps on, one pull chain at a time. A door swiftly opens, blows dust off her wings. Help is coming, she would say, her last words before changing into a pile of perfect powder ready to be swept away. All right, one more poem. Let's maybe lift the emotional register. Okay. This is called The Year We All Did Rituals. I'm sexiest when lonely and wondering what the world is doing. I call random numbers in my phone to see if I'm memorable. Time does its thing and splits in half. Cash is being dispensed collectively. If this is just between us, I owe my friends a lot of money. My love language is that I remember everything you say, the ways you like to nourish, using every supple color. Those details show up randomly in the environment. Pink, for example. Because I love you for free and my moon is full. Everywhere I go, I leave a window open. A body filled with knowledge is a thing you keep around. I always leave something behind so that I must come back. I can handle the loss, the heavy weight of its absence. I make the mistake of conflating my hypervigilance as being open-hearted. It feels as though I'm having surgery wide awake, aware, and you are watching. I am in awe of the capacity we have to inflict violence on others. A photograph tells 1,000 stories if you look at it long enough. People like to take my picture. I let them and then burn candles. If you ever find one of me, know that in my naked despair, I was having a good time. As a season, I'd be spring, sex, death, renewal. If a bird is singing as you read this, I hope you know its name. I play music for everyone I love. It is a sacred gesture. This poem will end with instructions that may or may not open you. Call 3 friends you haven't spoken to in a while and tell them they are on your mind. Be open to what comes back to you, beautiful green energy. This is a medicine that should not be taken for granted. Lie languid on your bed and send a portrait of you in the nude. Blessed be the body and the song you are today. Your lover is coming, and we are not at war. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much there. Beautiful. Beautiful poetry from both of our features. Before we have our last reader, we will hear a few words from Mark Irwin. Mark is the author of 9 collections of poetry. He is also a translator, essayist, and professor at the University of Southern California, and a great friend of Beyond Baroque. So let's give him a warm welcome, and he'll share a few words about Weijia.
Thank you, Sara and Darren. Those were beautiful poems. I especially loved When Mama Was a Moth, the imagination in that poem. And thanks to Quentin and Yvonne and Jimmy. You know, what really makes a literary community is a bookstore and a reading series and a place where people can take writing classes. And of course, Beyond Baroque has all those things. So if you're not a member, I really encourage you. I've been coming here for 23 years to join Beyond Baroque. Weijia Pan is a remarkable poet, and I first came across his work in magazines like Copper, Nickel, and Plume. And then I had the good fortune to read his application to the University of Southern California's writing program. And of course, we accepted him, but Weijia, of course, is a trickster, so he took a fellowship from Stegner Fellowship from Stanford University. So I'm still very sad. I should actually be weeping up here now. But what is really amazing about Weijia's work is how he interprets beautifully the cultural, historical, and linguistic differences between China and American cultures, and also the languages. And in his poetry, you'll hear traces of how the Maoist government affected his his ancestors and his family. And also you'll hear, there's a beautiful poem about the diaspora of Chinese immigrants who worked on the, brutally worked and were mistreated on the Canadian Pacific Railroad. But I think his best poems are told in a child's voice that's juxtaposed against these historical events, which gives them kind of a great dissonance between someone of Chinese heritage moving towards American citizenship. What's really remarkable in these poems are some of the images, and I'm going to read just a few of them to you. From Poem to Survive the Summer, these 4 lines. Bach, a small creek in German, circling back to itself, like strings lengthening into willows when I sit down at my piano. Another beautiful passage from First Time to a Bathhouse. In 1985, on the way to a bathhouse, Ba's head was a gong eclipsing the sun, his ground-loving flip-flops making a broken ragtime on the street. I'm leafing through the galleys because I haven't received my signed copy yet from Weijia. And this remarkable little passage, which really characterizes this dissonance between Chinese heritage and American citizenship. In a world where I traded my last toys for adulthood, the nameless store owner shaking his head, as if now, when I stand in line, telling the customs officer the purpose of my visit. And I'll read just one more so we can hear Weijia. This beautiful 4-line, this is from a poem which has a French title, Étude en 12 exercices, study in 12 exercises. Time is time's timestamp, which means that time keeps its own records like a metronome or a fountain blooming every 25 seconds, unlike the skyline that fades when the clouds loom large, a flock of your imagination dropping on a book's dead pages. You know, his best poems, there's this great Chinese visual artist, one of my favorite. His name is Cai Guozheng. He's kind of commonly known as the gunpowder artist. But what I love about Cai's work is that, he'll take landscapes that he's drawn, classical Chinese pastoral landscapes, and then he sprinkles gunpowder on them and lights them on fire. He also does this with, classical American semi-contemporary works like Mark Rothko or Jackson Pollock. It's hard to light a Jackson Pollock on fire because it's already on fire, of course. But, and then here's this wonderful last couplet I'll read to you from To My Classless Motherland. Dark is the color of small town China. I bottle kerosene. I light up your sky. This book was selected, one of the last books that Louise Glück selected, Motherlands. Here he is, the incredible Weijia Pan.
Well, thank you for the amazing introduction. So remember Cai Guoqiang, he's a world-renowned artist, and he would just go to a city and say, can I blow up your place? My name is Weijia. I'm the author of Motherlands here, which you can get at Beyond Baroque. Don't get it on Amazon later. It's a great honor to be here and to read some of my poems alongside Sara and there in front of fellow writers and friends. I also wanted to thank Yvonne and Quentin for hosting us, for making this possible. So most of the poems in this book came together between 2021 and 2023 when I was finishing my MFA at the University of Houston. But the initial ideas can be traced back to my childhood in Nanjing and Shanghai, two cities in Eastern China, and to my family stories I've been hearing since I was little. As I went back to those stories, though, I noticed how many of them were shaped by greater historical or political forces. So these poems, in some sense, are my love letter to my family, to my cities, and they're also the byproducts of my historical readings or questionings. So I'm going to start with some of the poems that Mark mentioned. The first poem is titled Poem to Survive the Summer. Poem to Survive the Summer. Oe Kenzaburo wrote, "Summer, death by water." He was referring to the hot Tokyo nights. Even the ducks couldn't sleep. At morning, 4 Karamazovs rustle in bed, thinking of money or the future of Russia. Bach, a small creek in German, circling back to itself like strings lengthening into willows when I sit down at my piano. A nearby lake smooths them back to say, "Hold on, my child, hold on." But the lake freezes in winter and doesn't return my calls. In summer, I write, 2 lines at a time, 2 vying souls running up the wall. At Romaro, Transformer strikes a chord, carrying Schubert into the blue of his cabin. Summer is the time of revolutions. June 1966, China was a sea of books. Friends followed. In 1989, people were busy covering bullet holes in Tiananmen as Gorbachev ran back to his cracking union. Summer sings the tune of birth and destruction. Van Gogh died on a summer morning. The apples of overs fumed with sweetness. Walter Benjamin was a child this summer, but the Spanish border smelled like rats and gunpowder. Even Rimbaud, the youngest of them all, squandered away his summer, his amputated leg lying beside him. When I think of summer, all the events come to life like a childhood shadow play. There's my father biking me to school, my mother knitting in the sun, competing with God to cover my limbs, my great-grandfather, middle-aged, spectacled, smiling like salt, etching away at the photo. He was missing in summer 1949. His whereabouts even the Red Guards couldn't figure out. When I write about him, all the summers walk in file. Then I lie awake, knowing it is my time to rest, like a child filling a bowl to the brim with every expectation of getting more. But an invisible hand grabs my shoulders to say, "Are you Weijia? Something happened. Come this way." The next poem is titled First Time to a Bathhouse. So there was a traditional bathhouse in Nanjing where I lived when I was little. So in this poem, I imagine the speaker going to a bathhouse with his father. First time to a bathhouse. In 1985, on the way to a bathhouse, Ba's head was gone, eclipsing the sun. His ground-loving flip-flops making a broken ragtime on the street, walking past. I was 5. I'd known a few dangers. Those hot baozi coming out of steamer, for example, those fast bites and a scorched mouth, 3块钱, 5块钱. They were 5 cents back then, dancing on my tiny fingers. In the barber shop, I learned to close my eyes when they washed my hair. Let it go, I hoped. Leave 1 centimeter, Ba said. Then the barber cut it all off. For whom did I want my hair long? Certainly not girls, for I hated them back then for being different from me. How counter-revolutionary it seemed to pee while sitting. Walking past the bookstore where I rummaged like a squirrel for new comics, the owner chasing me away with a feather duster. Ma never used a feather duster, but a towel cropped out of a shabby t-shirt. You don't want the dust everywhere, she said, and that's how I clean my room now, glad I still have spare shabby t-shirts. At the butcher's, an assortment of broken duck necks was a local cuisine we couldn't afford, so we brought home some squishy stuff, still warm from a pig, which Ma wok-fried with celery. It tasted good and was cheap, which was also good. As if goodness is the same as saving up, as starving ourselves, thing equals good. Walking past. A shop crowded at a spring festival sold kids firecrackers. They exploded when hurled at the ground. It sounded dangerous. Use them up before grown-ups confiscated them. Walking past. A decent restaurant, a makeshift chimney, a narrow doorway to a half-lit staircase where people lived upstairs, inhaling smoke and dreaming from time to time. Maybe about steam engines. Every now and then, Bob would stop an acquaintance. Call uncle. Well, I would wait to morph into a dinosaur, a policeman, a truck, until I ran out of words, or seduced a tedious kid on the street. Thought everyone was bored like me, but they kept moving in different paces and directions. We finally moved on, slipping our shadows into crowds, while I gasped for fresh air amid trousers and fists. Maybe you had a real plan to visit somewhere, I thought, like touring a castle or a graveyard of fighter jets. So many secrets outside my street that others must have discovered and got bored with. But we descended the ramp to the smell of soap and grown men's backs. To me, it was alluring. The rubbing of Bob's palms against my armpits, my clawed ears for 2 days, my penis that wrinkled and lengthened like a snail. Should I tell Bob that an old man was staring at me long and long? But Bob's head lowered. His wet voice ferried me there like an offering. Then the man smiled, his gold tooth or dark shine through the mist. Yes, I will take your son to my school. Yes, I will beat him and educate him. I'm going to continue with a poem after this. It's titled Monologue on an Anonymous Alley, 1998. At 7:30, an uncle wheeled out a tin-clad trolley with deep-fried rice cakes, which grannies picked up for breakfast. The soap gurgling down the alley is louder now. The neighbors battering their clothes said what sounds to me like my language. Back then it was foreign, but Dad's teeth clenched and unclenched from work or despair. This was an alley where fashion loitered in the 1940s colonial style, and the blooming patterns on Qipao bullied a kid like me, a different kind of bullying from what they did to the kid aged 40 with cerebral palsy, shouting up and down the winding staircase. I wish I had his perfect Shanghainese. My teacher's spectacles reflected blame I was slow to understand. I was reading Das Kapital. For what? The parasol trees, shuffling tiles of lily on overhead mahjong tables. The gambling involved little, a grown-up story in a world where I traded my last toys for adulthood. The nameless store owner shaking his head, as if now, when I stand in line, telling the customs officer the purpose of my visit. So that was my experience of growing up in Shanghai. My family was from Nanjing, a different city with a different dialect. So there was discrimination from the Shanghainese, because the Shanghainese were like New Yorkers. Like they don't think everyone else is like a legit person. The next poem is the one with a weird French title. I'm going to try to pronounce it. Étudiant aux exercices, S136. In Liszt, I hear an old man stumbling across the fields to meet me. He starves to save bits of bread for my pocket. My own grandma is different in a senior home in Shanghai. Grandpa, is polite, asking about my age and name and marriage and age. Timestamp, which means that time keeps its own records like a metronome or a fountain blooming every 25 seconds. Unlike the skyline that fades when the clouds loom large, a flock of your imagination dropping on a book's dead pages. In the early 19th century, Japanese samurai from the south would gather every spring to discuss insurrection. Now, they would say finally. It was 1868. The Americans were banging on the door, and the last shogun, a bony young man, would wisely concede. Being an introvert, I concede every day to my own messiness. I read in my study. I love the fact that you're out there, reader. But glad you were not here is not what a poet should tell another poet, as if to imagine the world, we should only write about selfhood, the feather of birds on parchment, and cold 13th century nights. How destructive were Stalin's pencils, marking blue crosses and ticks on death warrants, a color not visible in photographed. He started off as a poet, a job I now have. I remember another poet in Flushing, New York, who told me that I shouldn't let my poems end too easily, how I'd always despised him a little, yet accepted when he rummaged for cash and broken English, a fatherly way to say stay alive and goodbye. So I actually gave a copy of this book to the poet. I mean, he has spoken English, so he probably hadn't reached this part yet.
You read Pepper's Path?
Yeah, sure. So this is a poem that throws us back to 3rd century China, where the epigraph is from a prince poet named Cao Zhi, and he was one of the first geniuses in Chinese literary history. And like he's being a prince, he was not chosen for succession, so he's like sidelined by his brothers, and eventually basically like killed or like died in misery. It's called Pepper Path. And also Pepper Path is an imagery that refers to the practice of sprinkling peppers on the newly paved road for safe travels, for good omen, but then was thinking about pepper in the modern usage. Okay, Pepper Path. She walks the heady perfume of pepper-scented roads, strides through clumps of spikenards, scattering their fragrance, from The Goddess of the Law by Cao Zhi. They used to sprinkle the path with pepper so that it smelled good, assuring, that it was firm, straight, a goodwill, that no one who ever trod on it would walk awry, a dream. It was good to dream dreams in 3rd century China when bronze pigeons floated around. Literati woke up to find, Literati woke up to find food on the table. They smoked herbs to get high. Now they use pepper for a different purpose. When we, the literati, gather, they, the barbarians, pepper us. Sorry. Those pepper seeds, grown in the warmth of South America, distilled capsaicin, assassin. A pepper path, where another pepper tree grows solid, shielding up the soul from anti-riot vehicles. I'm going to weave into a poem on a more modern case of suppression. It's called Poetica Historica, or How to Leave My Country a Voicemail. Now you're everywhere. I've known you for 50 years. The fog on your face has lingered for 50 years. No scrubber can clean up mysteries held so long. In his room, father wipes the mahogany box for 50 years. That box came from great-grandpa, gone in 1949. He was an English major, a family tutor for 50 years, until a patron made him a warden at number 3 Suzhou prison. He didn't know fate will smile on him after 50 years. Great-grandpa ran his little prison like a laundromat. He tortured no communists with 50-year sentences, nor did he follow the Kuomintang. Great-grandpa was neutral politically. For 50 years, he dealt with the SVO structure, practiced calligraphy on old newspapers. This would go on for another 50 years, but that'll be unnecessarily naive, your officials said, hoping to change a country, revolutionize it in 50 years. They liberated a village, a city, a country, and from that country to this tiny prison, they altered one by one those 50-year-old, thus reactionary traditions, replacing even the doorknobs. Fired on the spot, great-grandpa was again looking for jobs. In 1950, he went down south and disappeared. An ailing man, he left us a few photos, and a jawline that 50 years later was claimed by my father. He closed the door on me when I asked about great-grandpa, as if saying enough after 50 years. Get back to school in America, and history should move on. I understood that. He looked for great-grandpa for 50 years and searched through the provincial archives, but couldn't find even a death warrant, which would have allowed him to claim, after 50 years, that great-grandpa was a state enemy, that he was killed for crimes he didn't commit. But you, towering over us for 50 years like an iron cloud, rained down nothing. In 1992, you decided to liberalize. Give us food, wine, and shopping malls. We'll forget your crimes in 50 years. I think I'm gonna end with something lighter. So I'm a translator myself, and I work mainly with contemporary Chinese poetry. There were many frustrating moments in translation where you have to get at what you think is the essence of the poem by departing from the literal meanings of the poem, and sometimes departing from the original intent of the poet, if that poet is alive. I wonder if it's the same with you, Mark, when you translate Rimbaud. Like, does he ever haunt you in your dreams, or? But like for me, I'm working with contemporary poetry, so like it's very likely that my poet is still alive, and if they know some English, like broken English, they're likely to intervene to correct your English. So this is a poem about my frustration. Betrayal, or when a poet translates another poet. I walk fitfully into the moon of silence, aspirant. The moon fitfully aspires to walk into my silence. Silence my moon into the aspirant walk fitfully. With fitfulness, the moon walks silently, and I. Doubly fitful into me walks silence, the moon. Triple the moon, mine, in silence to walk. Walks fitfully, the moon fitfully to me, walk silently, the moon fitfully to me, aspirant. Aspiring to walk silently, I fitfully, and aspiring silences fitfulness, I walk into the moon. To me, the silent moon, in and of itself, on the path of aspirants, a fitful silence walks over me. The moon forks, all aspirants in frightful silence. Two aspirant pieces, I'm their silence, walk fittingly. Thank you.
Thank you to our three poets for tonight. Let's give them a round of applause, all of them. Yes. Yeah, Weijia, congratulations for your collection, Motherlands. It is available in the bookstore, like Weijia said. Don't go to Amazon. You're already here, so please support the bookstore. I believe we may have copies of Sara's books and a myriad of authors in that special collection we have in that room. And as Mark said, wise words that you can become a member to Beyond Baroque and take advantage of all the perks that come with that. We have paid events from time to time, and you can come into this space. If you are a Beyond Baroque member, you would come in for free. There are discounts on merch and books as well, and you are supporting the lifeline of this special organization. So thank you all, and be safe tonight, and let's chat in the lobby and celebrate a little bit more. Thank you.